W1120 AM and W275CM FM. Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative Jake Auchincloss are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
When a heart stops, the clock starts. You are the first responder until help arrives. In that moment, 4 minutes equals brain damage. 6 minutes equals too late in an emergency. The first responder is you. We need you. Will you be ready? Learn CPR. Visit heart.org/nation. That's heart.org/nation.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
As a busy mom, my to-do list is full.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
Visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
As you navigate life after divorce, planning for your family's future becomes even more important. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. From everyday expenses to thinking about how college will be funded, it's important to have a clear plan for how all of your upcoming costs will be handled over time. Divorce also means adjusting to a new financial reality, where one household becomes two and your budget, saving strategy, and long-term goals may need to be reevaluated. Our new guide is called Divorce and Your Financial Plan, and it discusses ways to build a financial strategy that supports your family's next chapter. You can get your free guide today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today we're talking about the use of life estates and your primary residence. Todd, what are the pitfalls associated with creating a life estate when you transfer the remainder interest to your children?
Yeah, this is the most common way people create life estates. It seems easy, it seems simple, but it's not the best way to create a life estate. Once you put your children's name on the deed, you give up a lot of control. Like you can't change your mind later if you want to leave it to one child versus another who might be taking care of you later. You have problems if you want to go to sell it, right? You might have the right to live there, but if you want to go to sell it, you're going to need the permission of the children in order to sign off on the remainder interest of the deed. And then even if they do sell it and you get their permission, a larger chunk of the proceeds are going to end up in the hands of the child rather than you. That creates adverse income tax consequences to the child. Plus, you who sold the house might need the money to buy another house or a downsized house or move, all of which create problems. Never mind creditor problems for the children while they're living. Folks, don't do the life estate this way because it seems to create more trouble than it's worth.
Learn how you can avoid probate, eliminate estate taxes, keep your money in your family, and protect your assets from the nursing home. Request this brand new guide from Cushing & Dolan. It's called Calculating the Consequences of a Life Estate. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can simply request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong.
Chuck, Mike, and Tucker with you as we kick things off on a Monday. It's the second to last Monday in March. Did you know that, Michael? It's a big one for me personally.
Of course I did.
It's a big one for me personally, right behind Flag Day.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, right behind the third Tuesday in April. It's right up there.
Third Tuesday does okay. It still slaps. Let's talk a little bit about what happened this morning because this is our top story. So I woke up at around 4:30 or so. This is not the important part, but the futures market at that point in time, S&P futures were off around 70 points. And they kind of lingered between, 40 and 70 down throughout the morning until at 7:23 a.m., President Trump put this out on Truth Social. Quote, I'm pleased to report that the United States of America and the country of Iran have had over the last 2 days very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East. Based on the tenor and tone of these in-depth, detailed, and constructive conversations, which will continue throughout the week, I have instructed the Department of War to postpone any and all military strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for a 5-day period, subject to the success of the ongoing meetings and discussions. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So this is basically the answer to on Saturday. He had posted that if the Strait of Hormuz was not open within a 48-hour period, the U.S. was going to begin bombing Iranian power plants. The Iranians responded and said, fine, you're going to do that. We're going to attack desalination plants that provide fresh drinking water throughout the region as well as energy infrastructure as well.
The 48 hours was expected to be up sometime around 7 p.m. Eastern.
Correct. So this happened, and immediately S&P 500 futures went from about 50 points down at the time to about 180 points up. It was about a 230-point swing in 3 minutes. And, of course, everyone is, sitting there looking at their screen going, okay, what happened? And, of course, you head over to Truth Social and, you figure it out pretty quickly. So the Iranian government then, the Iranian Foreign Ministry, about 20 minutes later says, hey, we haven't had any conversations with you, and, we don't appreciate this psychological warfare as you're delaying, blah, 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 as you try to get, troops into position for additional action.
Yeah, it was very much that combined with, defiant rhetoric of the White House is really taking the foot off the pedal because they're nervous about Iran's capabilities that were displayed over the weekend. So that was the message delivered from the state media of Iran.
We then got around maybe an hour or so later from Axios reports that Egypt, Turkey, and I forget who else had delivered some messages back and forth between Iran and the United States over the past couple of days. So here's what we do and don't know. We don't really know anything, quite honestly. and that's fine. I'm perfectly willing to look at this and say it's absolutely possible that substantive conversations have taken place. It's absolutely possible that no conversations have taken place. I think both of those are realistic possibilities given the fog of war that we still have going on right now. And there are reasons for both sides to be presenting exactly what they're presenting at this moment in time. The president can absolutely be saying, yep, I'm moving forward on trying to de-escalate things, because he knows that ultimately what Iran is trying to do is create as much economic pain as possible. And the way to minimize that in the short term, at least, is to create the appearance of progress, if there isn't any happening. Again, I don't know that there is or isn't. I'm just saying this is one possibility. Likewise, if you are the Iranian side, your view is to try to look like you are standing up as strongly as possible to America, because that is going to give you the greatest leverage in trying to determine your fate and kind of what things look like after this. So these are entirely reasonable reasons why either side may not be giving you the accurate picture. The truth is probably somewhere in between in terms of, as Axios indicated, there's probably been some messages going back and forth. The exact tenor and the exact tone of those, I don't know, but we don't really know anything, and I don't have any unique insight into this.
There are very few people in the world that do.
Other pieces that I will note. In the statement from President Trump, it does not say that the United States is halting all military operations right now. It says they're not going to target Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for a 5-day period. They were not targeting that previously. It's not something that the United States has targeted as part of this conflict. Israel has in a couple occasions, and in both occasions, the United States was like, guys, what are you doing? At least, publicly.
Sure.
And so it's unclear that this post represents any shift in the actual military actions that are being undertaken right now. It may not. We just don't know. Other things that I think are of note here. When we look at this post, I do think it does indicate that, in my opinion, the president is looking for options to de-escalate the situation. I don't think that's wrong. I would imagine under the right conditions, Iran is as well. I don't know that those conditions have necessarily been met for them, because I think they probably view themselves as having some leverage to try to cause as much pain as possible and want to wring as many concessions out during this as they possibly can. Because it's an asymmetric conflict. They know they're not going to beat the United States and Israel in an actual armed conflict. They have to use the tools that are available to them to try to ensure their regime's survival, which is still uncertain. It might not survive through this. Again, it's been 3 weeks. There still is a lot of development that can happen from here.
So S&P 500 at this price is back to where it was on Thursday of last week. We're not back to pre-Iran crisis. We're not back to anywhere.
We erased Friday, and we're kind of middle of the day Thursday. In my opinion.
I'm trying to get, are we better?
In my opinion, no one knows whether we're better off or not right now.
Yeah.
I have no idea, which is why my approach on this, again, just looking at this from an economic perspective and in terms of what's a meaningful signal about the actual conflict, it's really simple in my mind. Sorry, I jumped ahead there. If the boats start moving, good. That's the signal. Otherwise, what either side is saying isn't particularly relevant, because the only thing that really matters to the world economy is that the boats start moving again.
Yep. I think the most optimistic thing I can say is that we seem better off than we were on Sunday.
Well, yes.
That's the most confident I feel saying, is that we seem better off than when we had a standing threat to strike Iran's power generation facilities on Sunday. So there's your degree of improvement, I suppose.
Yes, as of right now, the fact that you will not have power plants and desalination plants throughout the region wiped off the planet later tonight is a positive.
Yeah.
In terms of, kind of how I'm viewing this, look, let's just watch for the next 3 to 4 days and see how things develop. I think that that's a reasonable approach to take. I am cautiously optimistic that this represents some real progress here, but we're going to need to see. And unfortunately, we've had multiple rounds of negotiations over the last 2 years that have ended in conflict both times. So it's unclear to me that negotiations here, if they're even happening, would necessarily resolve it. right now. Like, I don't really know. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. So I'm remaining open to a various number of possibilities because I don't have any idea what's going on, to be honest.
So let's do this. I'm not talking about from a stock market perspective, but let's go forward with a best case scenario, and I'll paint it and then we can think about it over the break and talk about it when we come back. But best case scenario in my mind would be ceased hostility or lowered hostility temperature for the next week or so, and within the next 4 weeks, traffic through the strait slowly beginning to operate again. So let's paint that picture.
I think there's a more optimistic scenario. Like,
Okay.
if you're truly thinking best case, you could have something announced in the next day or two and traffic starts to resume by the end of this week.
Okay, so let's run through what the world looks like in that type of environment next on the Financial Exchange.
The Financial Exchange streams every day live on YouTube. Subscribe to our page and follow the markets all morning long. Only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
As you navigate life after divorce, planning for your family's future becomes even more important. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. From everyday expenses to thinking about how college will be funded, it's important to have a clear plan for how all of your upcoming costs will be handled over time. Divorce also means adjusting to a new financial reality, where one household becomes two and your budget, saving strategy, and long-term goals may need to be reevaluated. Our new guide is called Divorce and Your Financial Plan, and it discusses ways to build a financial strategy that supports your family's next chapter. You can get your free guide today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Life estates are sometimes used to protect your home as part of your future, but it's important to understand how they really work before making any changes to your estate plan. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law and taxation. Their new guide, called Calculating the Consequences of Life Estates, explains the pros and cons and why careful planning is so critical. A life estate can allow you to remain in your home while transferring future ownership. But decisions like putting the property in your children's names versus using a trust can have very different consequences when it comes to taxes, control, and protection from creditors. Before you sign any deed or transfer property, be sure you understand your options. Call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699 and ask for your free guide today. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative Jake Auchincloss are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
Here at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we are committed to all students not only attending, but succeeding at school. Your presence is powerful. Share why you attend at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Daily financial content in your feed when you want it. Follow the Financial Exchange on Instagram. This is the Financial Exchange.
All right, so at the end of the previous segment, we laid out, hey, what's the best case scenario in the Middle East at this point? And I think where I've gotten to is, look, you have some kind of ceasefire that's announced in the next couple days, and from there you start to see traffic resume through the Strait of Hormuz by the end of the week in a meaningful fashion with, again, most estimates that I've seen, it probably takes several weeks to get back up to full speed for a number of reasons just in terms of transits. That also does not necessarily get you back up to full speed in terms of oil and nat gas production coming out of the region because a number of facilities have either been damaged or shut in. So if we do the math now, let's just look at oil first, just because this is the thing that I think we're most familiar about and most concerned about, most acutely at least. At the beginning of this, you were looking at a situation in which there was somewhere in the ballpark of 20 million barrels of oil products flowing through the Strait of Hormuz in any given day. Where we stand right now, there's about a 10 million barrel a day reduction because of mitigation measures that have been put in place, combination of the Saudis pumping things across the country to export through the Red Sea.
SPR releases, things like that. But you basically were looking at, through the first 2 weeks of this, I think it's safe to say you probably had a 14 to 15 million barrel a day gap that was there. And so that puts you at about 220 million barrels. It's been another, 10 days since then. So you're somewhere in the ballpark of a 300 to 320 million barrel gap right now that you have. Even if, something happens right now where it's hey, everything's fine, it still is going to take a couple days to get tankers moving, and you're not going to have full production. I think your best case is probably somewhere in the range of 400 to 450 million barrels lost as far as production amounts. The SPR releases that have been announced are on the order of 400 million barrels. But they're not lining up in terms of the timing. The Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, this morning was talking about this, and he said, look, from the United States SPR, we're talking about somewhere in the range of 1.2 to 1.4 million barrels a day as the max flow capacity. From the other ones around the world, you're talking about 3 million barrels a day. So it's about a 4.5 million barrel a day flow. That means that oil, let's say that things resolve today, you've lost, call it 400 million barrels of oil in a month, and it's going to take you 3 months to get those SPR releases released to clear that up. That's what you're looking at on there. So it's something, and remember, then you also are going to have to refill those because the U.S. SPR is going to be effectively empty, even though it still shows 200 million barrels in it, because the bottom of it in these salt caverns, it's basically sludge, and it's also needed for the structural integrity. You can't just empty them, otherwise the caverns collapse, which is something I learned, which is really interesting. If you have a pool, same effect. You can't drain your pool for a prolonged period of time because it'll collapse in and on itself.
Correct. It's the exact same thing. So ultimately, I think that when you look at this, it's something where no matter how you slice it, you are not going to get oil back down into the 50s or 60s this year, most likely. There's almost no scenario where that happens.
I would think not. Again, you talk about the U.S. need to refill that strategic petroleum reserve. India needs to build one. China has been, utilizing it. So
Japan's going to need to refill theirs.
It seems unlikely to me that these countries are going to do what the U.S. has done over the last several years, which is just ignore it, which, we're seeing how that played out at this stage.
Yes.
So I think that new order of, this is a real necessity comes into play rather rapidly. How quickly energy infrastructure across the Middle East comes online, how long does it take to get the Saudis back up to full? I don't know. I have no real idea, what it's going to take for Iraq and other oil-producing nations to come back fully online at this stage from the damage that's been done.
But we're talking on the scale of months and quarters.
Sure.
To kind of get back to some semblance of normalcy. It's not like you just go back to how it was, later this week. It's something where it's in the latter half of this year when you start to see those markets potentially normalizing, and that's if we get to a resolution now. Every single person that I follow in the energy space has basically said, look, if you don't get a resolution on this in the next 3 to 4 weeks, you start to see energy markets breaking because stuff just can't get from point A to point B, even if you want to. So that's kind of the ticking clock that I have. And I always I put out the Cinco de Mayo date as like, I don't know any other holidays that are at the beginning of May.
Sure. Yeah.
I guess you could do like Mother's Day as kind of the date, but that's where I kind of was looking. Some of the chatter that I've heard is it's closer, to like the Masters this year, like after Easter, but before. Again, like there's not many holidays like
just
in the middle
name a date. Tax day.
Tax day, sure. Okay, yes, call it tax day. Tax day is kind of where things start to get really gnarly in energy markets potentially. So I think the best case scenario is one in which, hey, if this does resolve positively over the next week or so, then there's a path towards more normalization later this year, but it's still going to be choppy and messy, and don't expect prices going right back down to where they were. If we're still sitting here on tax day, yes, that's the one I was looking for. Then, again, like I'm just parroting what I've heard from people in the energy space that know this better than I do, that generally are not the most alarmist. Then things start to get pretty gnarly again, really you're talking about Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
And you're already starting to see it show up. If you saw overnight, which most of you probably didn't because you don't follow this stuff, but Singapore, which is a main hub for shipping, they just announced rationing yesterday of bunker fuel, which is used to actually like fuel ships, because they just don't have enough refined product to be able to make full supplies right now. And this is the kind of stuff that you'll start seeing showing up more and more in the coming weeks. So, again, ticking clock on this. Maybe there's some progress being made. Let's see what this week brings. And if that hope of progress, turns into something tangible that you can actually see, which, again, for me, ships moving through Hormuz.
Yeah.
Anything else is window dressing, quite honestly.
It is. Yep.
Like that is what you need in order to resolve the situation.
And by the way, that's just a brief, all else equal, best case scenario. Inflation is a fair bit higher. There's still some disruptions. Nobody has been able to accurately paint a picture of what the Middle East looks like after this event. And, the cat is now out of the bag. There's always the threat that Iran may strike at its neighbors. And now the kind of cat's out of the bag on that one, and I think completely reshapes geopolitics across the Middle East in terms of investability and just reliability as a hub for economic activity.
Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, I want to talk about one more thing on this that I know sounds ridiculous, but just hear me out for 1 minute. And we'll discuss that when we return, as well as Wall Street Watch.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative Lori Trahan are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women,
taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined.
For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up.
Because we have something better.
Stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat. Visit goredforwomen.org today to learn more.
Protecting your home at the Life Estate can be problematic if you don't understand the rules. Cushing & Dolan's new guide called Calculating the Consequences of Life Estates can help you learn about how this strategy works and what to consider. Call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699 and get your guide today. Or request it online at LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hi, I'm Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and soldiers' homes and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for both single veterans and those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
When a heart stops, the clock starts. You are the first responder until help arrives. In that moment, 4 minutes equals brain damage. 6 minutes equals too late in an emergency. The first responder is you. We need you. Will you be ready? Learn CPR. Visit heart.org/nation. That's heart.org/nation.
This is Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane from the Armstrong Advisory Group out with our brand new guide for the month of March about divorce and your financial plan. And certainly while it's not the path that anybody hopes to go down with their marriage, many marriages do result in this, and it results in a full reformatting of their financial scenario. Now, Paul, understanding these different assets that ultimately need to get divided in the event of a divorce gets pretty complicated. So let's start with the basics when you're thinking about retirement assets versus the home versus, say, a checking account. How does one need to be thinking about these different buckets of money when they're talking about the equitable division of assets in a divorce?
Yeah, Mike, first you have to divide out those different assets into those buckets you were alluding to before: pre-tax retirement savings, real estate, as well as after-tax investment accounts. And what you have to understand is with the pre-tax retirement savings accounts, there are taxes and potentially penalties associated with those. So those assets are not equal to perhaps some money in a bank account, for example, that is much easier to access and withdraw. Same thing with real estate. Equity might be significant in a property, but there are a lot of carrying costs and expenses associated with that ownership.
Yeah, these things are complicated, and unfortunately, what it can lead to if you're not prepared for it is a division of assets that doesn't work out in your favor once you consider the after-tax implications of that division. If you have questions that you're facing as you head towards this life move, get your copy of our new guide, Divorce and Your Financial Plan. It's available by calling us at 800-393-4001. Again, it's the free guide, Divorce and Your Financial Plan, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Time now for Wall Street Watch, tracking the stocks, the data, and the headlines driving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Markets are staging a strong rally after President Trump said earlier this morning the U.S. military will postpone further strikes on Iranian energy infrastructure for 5 days following productive talks. Oil and Treasury yields are pulling back as a result. Right now, the Dow is up over 2% or 928 points. S&P 500 up by 2%. NASDAQ up 2.2% to 493 points. Russell 2000 up nearly 3% higher. 10-year Treasury yield down 5 basis points at 4.336%. And oil down 10% now, trading at $88 a barrel. Several airline stocks are seeing gains following The news from earlier this morning. Delta, United Airlines, and Southwest are up anywhere between 3 and 5%. Cruise lines, including Carnival and Royal Caribbean, are also rallying by 7%. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that Elliott Investment Management has a multi-billion-dollar investment in Synopsys, where Elliott plans to engage with the chip-design software maker to push the business to make more money from its software and services. Synopsys is up over 4% on that news. And after its 30% plunge on Friday, shares in Supermicro are modestly rebounding by 3% today. Friday's plunge came after the U.S. charged the co-founder of the company and 2 others in connection with an alleged scheme to smuggle NVIDIA chips into China. I'm Tucker Silva, and that is Wall Street Watch.
Again, I had a crazy thought over the weekend, which is not abnormal. I mean, it's when you give me 48 hours to myself, alone with the thoughts in my head, like you get some stuff that pops up.
Okay.
But I had a crazy thought that popped into my head in terms of like just what's a possible resolution to this, like as you get down to it. And I was like, look, ultimately, Iran wants something for this, and the U.S. just wants to have Hormuz open and Iran diminished militarily.
Okay.
Fair?
Yeah.
The U.S. might want other things, but in terms of like what's realistic at this particular point in time.
Yeah, I think that's what the U.S. wants. I'll be clear. I'm not sure that that's what Israel wants.
Forget about them for a second.
Sure.
And I had this crazy thought, and I went to myself, I said, imagine a world in which the deal that ends up being worked out is, okay, Iran reportedly is collecting fees right now of up to $2 million per ship that is safely passing through Hormuz, like basically right next to the Iranian coastline. They're taking a weird route that is far further north and kind of loops around a couple of Iranian islands. And reportedly it's so that they can undergo visual inspection by Iranian forces like from the shoreline and make sure it's the ship that it's supposed to be, yada, yada, so on and so forth.
How are they taking payment? No,
what do you mean, how are they have you heard of cryptocurrency?
Yeah.
Like the same way they've been taking payment for years.
Awesome.
Like it's not particularly hard.
Yep.
So, plus, again, they can figure out how to make money. Like they've done this for a while now. I think they have some ways. So, imagine a world in which they're collecting a couple $1 million a ship now. One of the terms they may say is, hey, you know what? We want to take a toll of everything coming out of Hormuz.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I could see how that would be objectionable to the United States. Unless the United States says, hey, we want to take a cut of everything coming into Hormuz. We'll secure the area on the outside. And look, this was a crazy thought. This was a dumb thought, I know. But I just want to put this out there that this morning in front of Air Force One, President Trump says that the Strait of Hormuz may be jointly controlled by him and the Ayatollah.
Yeah,
which could be just pure nonsense. But I'd also like to point out that I had this thought over the weekend, and we didn't do a show over the weekend because we don't. But if we had, I would have said it then, because it came into my mind as something that's not completely crazy, given where we are right now.
Yeah, and frankly, given the president's history of trying to negotiate deals. That's he sees everything through that business economic lens.
Yes.
And wants to go that way.
You want us to help police Hormuz? Fine, pay us for the privilege of doing so. Iran, okay, you fought a good fight, fine, you can, control I'm not saying that this will or won't happen. I can just see I had the thought over the weekend and then he said it this morning is the only thing I'm saying. So, again, I'm not saying it will or won't happen, but he said it now, not me.
Yeah.
So I'm just pointing that out.
Where does that leave the rest of the Middle East and Israel? I can't imagine terribly happy.
Here's all of the Gulf states would not be happy with this arrangement.
Very unhappy, unless the U.S. just supplied them with a boatload of Patriot missiles over the next decade.
Correct. And I would also imagine that at least a couple of those countries probably start calling the Saudis, again, even though not everyone's best friends there, but I could see at least a couple of these countries being hey, about those pipelines to the Red Sea, what do you think?
Yeah, chop chop.
Like, can we build some more of those maybe from us? But this is all just, speculation. But again, he mentioned it, which is just why I had to bring it up.
Yeah.
Is because I thought of it over the weekend and I'm like, nah, like that. And then he said it this morning and I go, oh, like that's out in the universe now. It's a maybe is what you're saying. Let's see. Anything else on Hormuz that we want to cover? Or can we hop over to the Fed and why I think this piece from the Wall Street Journal is not accurate?
Okay, let's go Fed.
Piece in the Wall Street Journal, why the Fed's next rate move could be a hike. I find it really hard to believe that the Fed's next move is going to be a hike. And the reason...
Let's talk about the circumstances you would need to get to. You would need to see employment take off again.
Or just not fall apart.
You would need to see inflation approach 5, I think.
I think you need to see it, again, if you just look at it...
Okay, let's talk core inflation then.
Core inflation at 4 would do it.
And to get there, I think you would need a massive increase in government spending. It could come from defense. It could come from a number of different areas, but I don't think you can get all of those things without a big U.S. government spending increase.
And here's the thing is, remember, this is... The order of operations matters here because this piece says why the Fed's next rate move could be a hike. And here's why I think it's a tough putt to get there. Look at where we are right now. Inflation by any measure before this whole thing was running somewhere high 2s, low 3s.
Yep.
You're going to get the March inflation data in about 3 weeks, and it's likely going to show that has moved from high 2s to low 3s, probably into mid to high 3s. Like, that's where your bump is going to be just based on energy prices. It'll be largely confined to there at the moment. It'll seep into core as you go through the year, but it's going to take time to seep into core because the stuff that's in core doesn't move instantly. It takes a little bit longer for it all.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the fastest things in core to move. Probably airline tickets and...
Airline tickets are going to move, but you're not going to see insurance pricing move right away and stuff like that. You're not going to see housing is completely uncorrelated to what's going on here. So again, it's going to take time there. The problem is that let's say that you do see a real inflationary spike to the point where you start getting demand destruction because prices have just gone up too much. That usually ends up resulting in some kind of negative feedback on the employment side before it prints in core inflation. And so the path that I could see as a hypothetical is, hey, the Fed gets nervous about the labor market and, does a cut or two, realizes it's been head faked, or maybe, Congress comes back and says, hey, we need some kind of reconciliation bill to throw a bunch of money at people to help support them. And that triggers, a wave of spending that then results in the Fed needing to hike later this year or next year.
It's really hard to see a hike as the next move.
There's a
really hard.
There's a reason why we have headline and core inflation, and it's as separated categories. And it's specifically so the Fed can look through short-term energy fluctuations if they want to.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they should or shouldn't. I don't know. This is one time. You know who's the happiest man in the world right now that he's not confirmed to be the next Fed chair? Kevin Warsh. Kevin Warsh does not want to be dealing with this crap.
Yeah.
If
let Jay deal with it for a couple
If it were
months.
up to Warsh, Warsh would be like, hey, if you guys want to hold off on my confirmation for 6 months or so, that'd be great. He's happy to take a delay on it because you don't want to deal with this. But the idea that the Fed's going to, hike at their next meetings, coming up, I mean, just play out the timeline here. The next one's in 37 days. It's going to be on April 29th. You'll have had one inflation reading since the conflict started.
It's tough to envision a scenario where you're getting a hike before the end of the year. And if that's the case, then I'm not sure, this piece about this is relevant. The only way it comes is if the Fed genuinely pauses for the next 6 or 7 months and does nothing, and then there's an inflationary impulse sometime later this year, in my view.
Want to know what's interesting, though? This piece was written on March 21st by Greg Epp. On March 20th, which was Friday, again, the futures markets don't trade over the weekend. On March 20th, Fed funds futures were predicting a 12.4% chance of a hike at the upcoming April meeting, 0% chance of a cut. which is interesting to me.
Yeah.
And I think kind of misguided because, again, the Fed is not going to have enough information in their informational analysis.
Their models.
Yes, that's the one, in their models, to be able to say, yes, we should hike or not. The soonest I think they could get there is the July meeting, which is end of July this year. It's July 29th. That's the soonest. Other than that, I think talking about like either the April or June meeting as being live for a hike is pretty misguided in my opinion. And even July, I think, is a real stretch. So let's take a quick break, and when we come back, let's talk about what we are seeing in the bond market right after this.
Markets move fast. Follow the Financial Exchange live on X so you never miss a story. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Protecting your home at the life estate can be problematic if you don't understand the rules. Cushing & Dolan's new guide called Calculating the Consequences of Life Estates can help you learn about how this strategy works and what to consider. Call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699 and get your guide today. Or request it online at LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hi, I'm Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and soldiers' homes and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for both single veterans and those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
When going through a divorce, understanding the rules around your finances can make a real difference. This is Chuck Zodda from the Armstrong Advisory Group. State law plays a major role in how assets are divided, whether that means a strict split or a distribution based on what the court considers fair. Health insurance and Social Security benefits are other considerations that you'll need to prepare for. You may have been covered under a spouse's plan and now need to find one of your own, and Social Security may offer benefits based on your former spouse's record. Our new guide, Divorce in Your Financial Plan, will walk you through these issues and more to help you make informed decisions that may affect your future. Call 800-393-4001 to request your free copy. That's 800-393-4001 or request the guide online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative Ayanna Pressley are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
From markets to money to business and financial news, watch the Financial Exchange every day on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and keep up to date on the market news you need to know. This is the Financial Exchange.
The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV 5K raised over $150,000 last year, but we still need your help. You can support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. Your participation helps provide vital services like free transportation to medical appointments and safe housing for single veterans and their families. Donate today at dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Mike, we got a piece here in Bloomberg. Bonds lose $2.5 trillion in Iran war wipeout that mirrors 2022. So here is what has happened. If we take a look at the 10-year Treasury, at the lowest it got this year, which was admittedly like the day before hostilities kicked off. This was on February 27th. The 10-year got down to 3.962%. That was the close on that Friday. Subsequently, last Friday, 10-year Treasury had sold off to the point where it was at 4.391%. So it's about a 0.4% move in a span of a few weeks. And a lot of that coming last week, where it moved up 20 basis points over the course of the week. Today, on some of the optimism that markets have, we've got the 10-year. Oh, man, this screen new computer, and man, that's not readable. We got to make that bigger somehow. The 10-year right now is coming in about 4.7 basis points on some of this optimism that maybe you get oil prices, kind of moving in the right direction and things like that. But ultimately, when you look at the state of the bond market right now, it's been racked by volatility for the last few weeks, and bonds are going to need a little bit more time to sort through what the full impact is here.
It has, and they do. But I'm not sure I'm willing to say that it mirrors 2022. If it does, it's an awfully small mirror, because the magnitude of the change that we are talking about. So the 2022 losses for bonds were the worst that we saw since 1976. You had the yield on the 10-year Treasury going from, beginning of 2022 at 1 3/4. By the end of 2022, or the high in 2022, it was at 4 1/4. The magnitude of the change here that we're talking about is a fraction of that.
Yes.
And so talking about how it's mirroring, I don't want to get people into scared off mode here, right? We are not seeing the magnitude of inflation increases that we saw back in 2022. I personally doubt we will get there. And even if we did, it is extraordinarily unlikely to me that I think we see the magnitude of bond moves or interest rate moves that we saw back in 2022. Again, that type of move where you effectively see the 10-year triple, pretty obscenely rare to ever happen.
Yeah, I mean, look, you
lost, 15% in bonds in 2022? I don't know the...
almost 20, I think, at one point.
It's worse.
I think the big thing is, look, the path of bonds typically follows... There's two things that matter for bonds. Number one is the nominal growth rate. Number two is the real growth rate. So what are you seeing in terms of growth versus inflation? And in 2022, the problem was that the nominal growth rate was very high in the United States, and then almost all of that got eaten up by inflation. Not much of it turned into real growth because the inflation piece was so high. And so this was coming off a period where growth was very low, and so was inflation. And so that's why you saw this huge move in bonds with that scale of sell-off. Today, nominal growth is much tighter, and inflation has still been higher than kind of the pre-pandemic baseline. So I think unless you get a similar move on the inflation side of things, which is unlikely in my opinion, I don't think you're getting anywhere close to 9% inflation right now. Based on what we know. Obviously, look, if this takes a different turn over the next few months, things can happen. But I think for now, you kind of look at it and you go, yeah, there's probably still some room for yields to move up if, as the market sorts this out. But it's not going to be yields moving from, 1.5 on the 10-year to 5. It might be moving from 4 to 4.75 or 4 to 5.25. Even, you can make a case where in a really bad scenario, maybe the 10-year gets to 5.5, and I could buy that. I'm not saying that would be fun for anyone, but it still wouldn't be the magnitude of what we saw in 2022. I think that's kind of where I land there. Let's see. What else do I want to get to here? Ads are popping up all over the fridge, and it isn't going well. Yeah, here's the thing. Got to tell you, you don't need a smart fridge. Smart fridges are dumb.
I don't even want a smart fridge.
No.
I don't want a smart washing machine. I don't want any of these things
Smart
that are going to have
they're like,
more connections to the internet.
It's like, we can tell you when you're out of the stuff inside your fridge, or I could use my hands and open the door. Gosh, imagine, hey, honey, are we out of sour cream? Let me look. Instead of being like, fridge, are we out of sour cream? What if it's just hiding behind something? What if it's wrong?
So long story short, there's a $1,400 Samsung fridge that some people bought in years past.
It's got a screen on the front of it.
It's got a screen on the front of it, which was supposed to be for what Chuck mentioned. Now they're testing out advertising to people in their homes with audio and visual advertisements just playing randomly in the home. So enjoy.
Just trying to get a snack. Lay off
Welcome
me.
to the future.
Lay off me, LG. Don't worry about it. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back with Hour 2 in a bit.
Life estates are sometimes used to protect your home as part of your future, but it's important to understand how they really work before making any changes to your estate plan. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law and taxation. Their new guide, called Calculating the Consequences of Life Estates, explains the pros and cons and why careful planning is so critical. A life estate can allow you to remain in your home while transferring future ownership. But decisions like putting the property in your children's names versus using a trust can have very different consequences when it comes to taxes, control, and protection from creditors. Before you sign any deed or transfer property, be sure you understand your options. Call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699 and ask for your free guide today. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Have you saved enough for retirement? This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. The advisors at our firm have 150 years of combined experience in the financial services sector, and they all work together to help you develop a unique financial plan that offers investment management, financial planning, tax strategies, and retirement planning. It's our goal to help you position your assets and give you peace of mind. Having a solid retirement strategy and investment plan becomes more important as you age, so visit us today at armstrongadvisory.com and sign up for a free, no-obligation planning session. Just click the Get Started button at the top right corner of the homepage, and you can select the day and time that works best for you. Go to armstrongadvisory.com and let us develop a plan to help you secure your financial future. Again, that's armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative William Keating are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network. WBNW 1120 AM and W275CM FM. Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
When a heart stops, the clock starts. You are the first responder until help arrives. In that moment, 4 minutes equals brain damage. 6 minutes equals too late in an emergency. The first responder is you. We need you. Will you be ready? Learn CPR. Visit heart.org/nation. That's heart.org/nation.
Divorce isn't just a legal process. It's a financial reset. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and our new guide, Divorce and Your Financial Plan, walks you through how to take inventory of your assets, avoid common mistakes when splitting accounts, update beneficiaries, and start building a plan that works for your next chapter. Divorce is complicated enough without all of its financial ramifications. The decisions you make now can have lasting consequences for your future, because after a divorce, it's not just about who gets what. It's about making sure your financial life is truly separated and set up to support your goals going forward. Call the Armstrong Advisory Group right now at 800-393-4001 and get your free guide, Divorce and Your Financial Plan. That's 800-393-4001 or request the guide online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
Hi guys.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutsky from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange Quick Tip of the Day. And today, we're talking about the use of life estates and your primary residence. Todd, does the 5-year waiting period for Medicaid eligibility apply to the creation of a life estate?
Well, the short answer is yes, it does. But let me explain why it does. So, first of all, when you create a life estate, again, the general way people do it is they tend to put the remainder interest of the property in the hands of children. I don't like it that way, but that's how they do it, when you could have the remainder interest with the trust. But the moment you put the child's name on the deed and you reserve the right to live there is a completed gift for gift tax purposes. No one thinks of that, but now you technically need to file a gift tax return. And it's that creation of the gift, it's that transfer of that remainder interest in the property to the child for less than fair market value that triggers the disqualification period for Medicaid. So that's why you have to wait 5 years after you create this life estate arrangement in order for the house to be protected from the nursing home. It's very hard to avoid the 5-year waiting period, folks. There's really not too many ways around it.
Learn how you can avoid probate, eliminate estate taxes, keep your money in your family, and protect your assets from the nursing home. Request this brand brand new guide from Cushing and Dolan. It's called Calculating the Consequences of a Life Estate. You can get it by calling 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or you can simply request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing and Dolan. Cushing and Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated.
This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong.
Chuck, Mike, and Tucker with you as we kick things off, and I got to tell you, it's been an eventful 48 hours here. On Saturday night, President Trump had put out a post indicating that the United States was going to attack power plants throughout Iran by Monday night if Iran had not opened the Strait of Hormuz. This morning at 7 a.m., the president indicated that there had been satisfactory progress in some negotiations to potentially end the conflict, and so those plans to bomb the power plants were off for a 5-day period to allow negotiations to continue. Did not make a mention of, halting any other actions that are currently going on. And I've seen confirmed video of additional strikes taking place in the region this morning. About 20 minutes later, the Iranian foreign ministry says, hey, we're not talking with anyone. They said more words as well, but basically, no, we haven't talked to anyone. And so as it sits right now, we're basically in a situation where it's unclear exactly what is going on. There's probably some level of communication happening behind the scenes. But things that you do have to remember, the Iranian political leadership, a lot of it's dead, first of all. So it's unclear who's actually in charge, if anyone is fully in charge in Iran.
Which is partly by design.
Well, no, normally you have someone who's in charge, but right now it's unclear that there is
anyone that's in charge.
It's not clear that anyone who's alive actually has the ability to negotiate on behalf of the Iranian state.
Yeah, what is by design is the ability for the Iranian military to continue operating without that person seemingly in charge.
Yes. It's also unclear if the president's been reported that the president is negotiating with the leader of the Iranian parliament. It's unclear if the Iranian Republican Guard is going to listen to the Iranian parliament.
Sure.
There's not necessarily like a straight line in terms of how things work, as Mike mentioned. So basically no one really knows anything, but markets are rallying on this news, which is, again, good news for markets in the short term here. But ultimately, this is going to be about one thing and one thing only when it comes to the economy and markets. When do ships start moving through Hormuz in large numbers?
Yep.
To date, you have anywhere from 1 to 3 ships a day that now are passing by under cover of basically Iranian protection very close to the Iranian shores. But remember, prior to this, you had 50, 60 boats a day going in either direction, and that's just not what you have right now.
Iranian protection is a strange way to describe it. I guess it's
Iranian identification.
Yeah,
is how I'll describe
identification and lack of tossing missiles and drones at you.
Yeah, basically, they're not shooting at the ones that they've agreed to let pass, but it's a small number.
Yeah, it's hard for me to. The corollary would be, me pointing a gun at you and not firing and saying I'm protecting you. So, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of mobby, it's what it is. So ultimately, this is where we find ourselves today, but we do have a rally that is taking place across equity markets as a result. The S&P now up 2.25%, 143 points. The Dow up 2.3% as well, about 1,000 points. And the NASDAQ Composite up 2.5%, about 530 points. So you've got a broad-based rally taking place across risk assets. Likewise, 10-year Treasury is coming in as well, down 7.8 basis points to 4.314. Dollar index is down 0.6% to 98.85. Gold getting bopped on the head, but not as badly as it was earlier in the day, where it was down about 5%, now down about 2.5% to 44.59 an ounce. And crude oil, West Texas Intermediate, off about $9 a barrel to 89.04 right now. So markets to this point saying, okay, like we're buying that there is a de-escalation happening, and there may be.
And they're bringing us back to just, for context here, S&P 500 is back to prices that we saw on Wednesday of last week.
Yes.
It's not an elimination of the last 3 weeks of downturns. It is a, slight risk-off trade, I guess, today.
Risk on.
Risk-on trade today as things rebound a bit.
So we're going to have to see how this develops. I think the big thing, I am trying not to get too caught up in what either side is necessarily saying. The thing that's going to matter to the global economy, do the boats start to move through Hormuz? And that's what we're going to be watching for the first signs of, because that's when you'll know that there's actually improvement in the physical shortages that may be developing out in Asia, as opposed to the market trying to resolve itself. Mm-hmm. So hopeful that there's some progress being made. Let's see what the next few days bring. And I think we'll know more by the end of this week as to whether this is something tangible that we're going to be able to say, yep, like this is when things started to get better, or maybe it's a false start and we're not quite there yet. We'll see. What we do have right now, piece in the Wall Street Journal, $5 diesel is crushing truckers. It will soon be felt across the economy. So diesel has now moved up to $5.28 per gallon. This according to the AAA national average. That's up from about $3.60 a gallon prior to this. And I got to say, it's not actually crushing truckers based on what I'm seeing, because truckers are raising their rates very aggressively in order to maintain their profit margins.
For most freight companies, a 40% surge in the price of diesel results in total cost increase of around 10%.
And what we've seen, and this is data from FreightWaves, who Craig Fuller is their CEO. We had him on our show a couple times last year when all of the tariff stuff was going on. But what we've seen in terms of spot rates for trucking effectively is that they run something called the National Truckload Index. And basically it's, hey, what does it cost per mile in order to move stuff from point A to point B? And in the last couple of weeks, it's moved from around $2.60 per mile up to $3.02 a mile.
For those that don't,
which is telling you, hey, they're basically absorbing those costs and passing them on to the people that want to ship stuff.
For those that don't follow diesel prices closely, because I'm in that camp, a month ago, diesel prices were sitting at around $3.70.
Yeah.
So this is where it's been felt the most, and it's been a big surge, and it's also why everyone that studies inflation worries about that seep-through, because, oil prices, gas prices at the pump, they are not included in core inflation. Groceries aren't either, but, retail sales of shirts and everything else that goes into your household budget does get counted into core, and with enough time, those higher energy prices can pass right through.
Now, in the trucking industry, you typically have two different types of rates that are out there, and I'm not going to get too technical on it, but it's interesting stuff. Like, who doesn't love learning about how your stuff actually gets from point A to point B? I do. I think it's great. So you have two rates in general. The first is what's known as a contract rate. Again, hey, I need to move X units per month for the next year. What rate are you going to give me? You sign a long-term contract for it, and you're good to go.
Sure.
The other one's what's known as a spot rate. Hey, I got an extra thing I got to ship this week. What can you do for me? Spot rates are the ones that have moved up by that large amount right now. Contract rates are lagging because you don't sign a new contract every day. Eventually, if diesel prices remain high, contract rates will move up to match spot rates. But it takes a little bit of time for that to happen. So what this does mean, and again, this is why this is one of the reasons why the Fed talks about like these long and variable lags for monetary policy. You don't start seeing this showing up on every single thing that's being shipped right away because some of them already have existing contracts that they have to, honor at the previous rates. As you go through the spring, those start to roll off depending on how long term they are. And so the contract rates move up to meet the spot rates if you still have diesel prices where they are. So this is not something that you're going to see instantly, but watch this because it seeps into everything from, hey, like if AB InBev is shipping beer across the country, okay, that means that, the price of beer goes up, but not right away because it takes time for this to seep in. Likewise, if Walmart is shipping plywood across the country, it takes time to seep in because the ones that are under contract are already, set. So it won't show up right away, but watch what happens as we get into April and May because that's when this potentially starts to move a little bit more. It's not instant, but it's as you start to get 2-3 months out, if you still have gas prices in this area, that's where things start to matter. So we'll watch how things go there, but kind of interesting. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, let's do some trivia right after this.
From breaking news to market analysis, follow the Financial Exchange Show on X and watch the show live every day. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
When going through a divorce, understanding the rules around your finances can make a real difference. This is Chuck Zodda from the Armstrong Advisory Group. State law plays a major role in how assets are divided, whether that means a strict split or a distribution based on what the court considers fair. Health insurance and Social Security benefits are other considerations that you'll need to prepare for. You may have been covered under a spouse's plan and now need to find one of your own, and Social Security may offer benefits based on your former spouse's record. Our new guide, Divorce in Your Financial Plan, will walk you through these issues and more to help you make informed decisions that may affect your future. Call 800-393-4001 to request your free copy. That's 800-393-4001 or request the guide online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Life estates are sometimes used to protect your home as part of your future, but it's important to understand how they really work before making any changes to your estate plan. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law and taxation. Their new guide, called Calculating the Consequences of Life Estates, explains the pros and cons and why careful planning is so critical. A life estate can allow you to remain in your home while transferring future ownership. But decisions like putting the property in your children's names versus using a trust can have very different consequences when it comes to taxes, control, and protection from creditors. Before you sign any deed or transfer property, be sure you understand your options. Call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699 and ask for your free guide today. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
See you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Here at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we are committed to all students not only attending, but succeeding at school. Your presence is powerful. Share why you attend at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative Stephen Lynch are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Hear the Financial Exchange every day from 11 to noon on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. Keep it here for the latest business and financial news and the trends on Wall Street. The Financial Exchange is now live on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Time for trivia here on the Financial Exchange. And on this day back in 1983, Ronald Reagan introduced the Strategic Defense Initiative. The SDI was a proposed missile defense system intended to protect the U.S. from attack by ballistic nuclear missiles. So our trivia question today, what was the most commonly used name for Ronald Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative? Once again, what was the most commonly used name for Ronald Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative? Be the third person today to text us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer, along with the keyword trivia, and you win a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Once again, the third correct response to text us to the number 617-362-1385 with the correct answer, along with the keyword trivia, will win that t-shirt. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Mike, there's a piece in Bloomberg here. It's titled, "What We Still Don't Know About Private Credit is Troubling." It may be, it may not. If we don't know about it, how could we know that it's troubling?
The troubling part is a further hypothetical. So the troubling part, according to the author, is whether private credit stress stays contained or spreads.
Well, we don't even know how much stress there is.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not one to, have a bunch of sympathy for the private credit people, because I've been someone who for the last 8 months has said, hey, something kind of stinks here and we need to pay attention to it. Mm-hmm. But I also can't be like, hey, there's all this stuff that we don't know and so it's troubling. Well, if we don't know it, it can't be troubling. I mean, it could be, but we don't know if it's troubling.
Yeah.
Is that troubling?
This seems a little bit... Here's a relevant question that I want to ask you. All of the focus is on the banks. This whole article is written from the perspective of what happens if it's too embedded in the banks, and they come up with estimates that, for U.S. banks, there's just under $100 billion of exposure. That's an estimate from the Federal Reserve. Moody's estimates it's closer to $300 billion.
None of that's anything. None of that's even
tiny
enough to matter, quite honestly. I know that's crazy to say $300 billion doesn't matter, but that's how big these banks are now.
Why is our lens too focused on the banks from the Great Financial Crisis episode? Yes. Because banks are not the only financial institutions that matter.
No.
Right? You cannot have a functional financial system if you cannot get insurance. You cannot have a functional financial system if a good portion of pensions go belly up. There are other institutions that are important to the functioning of our systems, and that's one of my worries, is that I don't actually think that we are, I hate to say this at any moment, but I don't actually think that the worries for banks is going to come from private credit during the next bank blow up. But there are a bunch of other financial institutions that do derive a lot of their income from this space, that if they blew up, I don't think we could look at it and say, oh, well, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, the places that give me the heebie-jeebies right now, the insurance companies, specifically the big life insurers, not even the big ones, but just anyone in the life insurance space, you don't know what they own, and you don't know how much of it has gone bad.
Yeah.
And we're not going to know that until I think that here's the question that I think you have to ask. When can you sound the all clear on private credit? Like, let's talk about what that looks like, because we can say, okay, like we might be scared about it. What are the things that we would look at to be able to say, hey, this is all clear now and not something to worry about?
The early indications would probably come from the stock prices.
Probably.
Right? Like, the stock market usually gives some degree of all clear, and these companies across the board are
I think
off,
you just need time, in my
50%.
opinion. Time is the only thing I think that can put it to bed. And timeline-wise, 21 months. End of next year. If you haven't seen anything happen by then, you kind of look at it and say, look, a lot of these were loans that were taken out, back in 2020 through 2022. A lot of them might have been, 5 to 7 years in to maturity. If you haven't seen real problems by then
they're not going to be. It's not a result of this.
It's likely not a systemic issue that is big enough to affect that. It doesn't mean that you still can't have like individual funds that run into problems and stuff. But in terms of, should the average person still care about what's going on in private credit then? My answer would be I think there's an expiration date on it, because we can't just be sitting here in like 2035 being like, hey, those private credit concerns of 2026, how about them? Like, no, like eventually you got to get to a point where you're like, okay, we can put this to bed because it's not a thing anymore.
My only caveat there would be if we do, in fact, greenlight all this stuff into everyday person's 401k plans, and that is the formula for it avoiding a blow-up, then maybe it needs to stretch out a little bit further. Right? Like right now it's facing a bit of a liquidity crisis. Everybody's trying to run for the exits on private credit, and so they're left figuring out, okay, how do we get our liquidity? If they get their liquidity from your pension plan or your 401k and my 401k,
sure,
then there might still be an underlying problem that gets resolved in the short term, but not the long term.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So we've got that going on. Why healthcare is doing the heavy lifting in this job market? Well, we're getting old and we need more healthcare. Easy answer.
So I'll give you some of the data, though. So in 2010, according to the census, there were 40.3 million Americans over the age of 65. That's grown by nearly 40%. As of 2020, there were nearly 56 million Americans over the age of 65. And based on that trend line, I don't know if you have an estimate for 2025 or 2026. I couldn't find one. Obviously, we do a census once a decade. The healthcare sector and healthcare plus social assistance sectors of the labor market. In 2010, there were 16.7 million folks working there. As of 2020, 20.7 million. You saw a dip briefly during COVID, and then it's just reaccelerated here. And so it seems pretty clear to me. 65 plus population has grown 38%. Healthcare and social assistance population grown 24%. You don't need, one new healthcare worker for every new person turning 65, but so long as we continue to age, there will be more demand for people that work in nursing, skilled nursing, and all sorts of social assistance that's needed to keep us alive and relatively healthy.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment of it. Let's take a quick break here, and when we return, we've got the trivia answer, we've got Wall Street Watch, and then we'll talk about this piece from Barron, 7 ways to overcome the risks of retiring into a down stock market. We'll discuss that next.
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative Lori Trahan are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts has helped me and countless others adjust to civilian life through a variety of incredible programs. Through our local Veterans Assistance Program, we provide necessary services to veterans and their communities, such as food shopping, landscaping, and companionship, but we need your support. You can help by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
When going through a divorce, understanding the rules around your finances can make a real difference. This is Chuck Zodda from the Armstrong Advisory Group. State law plays a major role in how assets are divided, whether that means a strict split or a distribution based on what the court considers fair. Health insurance and Social Security benefits are other considerations that you'll need to prepare for. You may have been covered under a spouse's plan and now need to find one of your own, and Social Security may offer benefits based on your former spouse's record. Our new guide, Divorce and Your Financial Plan, will walk you through these issues and more to help you make informed decisions that may affect your future. Call 800-393-4001 to request your free copy. That's 800-393-4001 or request the guide online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Life estates are sometimes used to protect your home as part of your future, but it's important to understand how they really work before making any changes to your estate plan. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law and taxation. Their new guide, called Calculating the Consequences of Life Estates, explains the pros and cons and why careful planning is so critical. A life estate can allow you to remain in your home while transferring future ownership. But decisions like putting the property in your children's names versus using a trust can have very different consequences when it comes to taxes, control, and protection from creditors. Before you sign any deed or transfer property, be sure you understand your options. Call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699 and ask for your free guide today. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hey, this is Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we're here to talk to you about our brand new guide, Divorce and Your Financial Plan. Paul, let's fast forward here a moment. You're through the divorce process, and now you are focused on this entirely new financial life. What do you view as the first step toward developing that new financial plan as you're thinking about a single individual versus a married couple?
What you really have to focus on, Mike, is the cash flows of your household. You've gone from presumably 2 incomes down to 1 income, or you're just living off of a lesser income. So understanding what your expenses are going to be going forward and matching that to the income that's coming in to your newly formed household is really important. That is something that is a area of significant focus, as well as health insurance coverage is another area that is of significant importance.
How are things like taxes and general expenses, how does that all change now if you're thinking about a single person versus a married couple?
Yeah, the tax brackets will change for a single filer versus a married couple, usually to the downside. Really, you're going to pay more in the way of taxes. So that's something that's really important to focus on, as well as many other areas of your financial plan.
Folks, we've got a brand new guide, again, from the Armstrong Advisory Group. It's free, and it's available at armstrongadvisory.com. You can request it there. It's Divorce and Your Financial Plan. There is a lot that goes into rebuilding your financial life after a life event as consequential as a legal divorce. If you have questions about how to navigate that process, this new free guide from the Armstrong Advisory Group is a great starting point. You can get it by requesting it again at armstrongadvisory.com or calling us at 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Time now for Wall Street Watch, tracking the stocks, the data, and the headlines driving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Equity markets are strongly rallying after President Trump said earlier this morning the U.S. military will postpone further strikes on Iranian energy infrastructure for 5 days following productive talks. Right now, the Dow is up 2.2%, over 1,000 points higher. S&P 500 up nearly 2%, or 127 points. NASDAQ up 2.2%, or 476 points. Russell 2000 up 3.6%. 10-year Treasury yield down 6 basis points at 4.332%. And crude oil down nearly 12%, trading right around $86 a barrel. Several airline stocks are seeing gains in reaction to Trump's announcement this morning. Delta, United Airlines, and Southwest are all up about 5%. Cruise lines, including Carnival and Royal Caribbean, also rallying about 7%. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that Elliott Investment Management has a multi-billion-dollar investment in Synopsys, where Elliott plans to engage with the chip design software maker to push the business to make more money from its software and services. Synopsys is up by 5%, and after its 30+% tumble on Friday, shares in Super Microcomputer modestly rebounding by 7% today. Friday's plunge came after the U.S. charged the co-founder of the company and 2 others in connection with an alleged scheme to smuggle NVIDIA chips into China. I'm Tucker Silva, and that is Wall Street Watch. In the previous segment, we asked you the trivia question. What was the most commonly used name for Ronald Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative? That would be Star Wars. Joe from Worcester, Mass. is our winner today, taking home a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Congrats to Joe. And we play trivia every day here on the Financial Exchange. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Peace in Barron's, 7 ways to overcome the risks of retiring into a down stock market. What this really gets at is what's known as sequence of returns risk, where
if you retired in 08, you were screwed.
In fact, you might not have been because the performance in the 15 years after was so strong.
Yep.
But the big thing is, hey, a down year early in your retirement has a different impact, a more meaningful one, than one that might happen 15 or 20 years later towards the end of your retirement. So what kinds of strategies, what kinds of thoughts are outlined in this piece here?
So as a starting point here, we're going to get into a bunch of different strategies, but as a starting point, you have to go into it assuming that the market will go into a downturn when you retire. And if you use that as your starting point, then you can kind of build off of things from there.
Sure.
But a few pieces here that the article points out, build a cash or short-term bond buffer. What do they mean by that is easily accessible, more than rainy day savings. So, financial advisors, the CFP, I think, depending on your situation, recommends between 3 and 12 months of your average living expenses in cash. This is a buffer beyond some of that because guess what? Stock market downturns don't always just last 3 to 12 months. One thing that most retirees have the flexibility on is when to take their Social Security benefits. Maybe you're healthy and you're planning on taking until 70, but you know what? If you get hit by a surprise market downturn, that can help, stop the bleeding from a portfolio as having another income source coming in. Your Roth conversions, I don't think that's really a strategy for rescue, but it can be a strategy to make yourself more tax efficient in the future if you're paired with a market downturn at that moment in time, because you can convert securities at a lower value and you just pay taxes on what they are worth when you do the conversion. And then everyone's favorite, continuing to work, is another strategy. But here's personally how I look at this stuff. And unfortunately, like everything else financial planning related, there's not really a good rule of thumb on this. I work with folks and say, okay, let's map out your next decade to the best of our ability. If you're heading towards retirement, let's map out the next decade in terms of what we think you might spend. We'll map out the next decade in terms of income coming in. And then from there, you should have some estimate of net what needs to come from your portfolio.
Sure.
And so long as you get to a comfortable level to say, okay, I know that somewhere probably between the next 3 and 10 years of my net needs from the portfolio is covered from something more predictable than the up and down swings of the stock market, most people feel pretty comfortable. Your results may vary. It depends on your situation and your tolerance for all these things, but that's how I get to my starting point with people that I work with. And guess what? It requires some work.
It does. It's not something where you just sit down and, like magically, like you get there. Like you've got to do the legwork on it to really go through all the details that are necessary. And look, sometimes people are perfectly comfortable and capable doing that themselves. A lot of times it requires, some forethought into things that you might not have considered in situations that are really challenging to sort through.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to just take a look at this and say, okay, the target date fund says that I should have this much of stock exposure, but the target date fund doesn't know that your daughter's going to get married in 3 years, or that your roof is 40 years old.
Or that you like new cars every 4 years instead of every 10,
Right.
like...
So if you are facing this down, what you've heard from us is that a one-size solution may work for you. It's possible it happens to work for you, but if it does, it's likely because it's a coincidence. If you want to have that peace of mind of knowing that, hey, my portfolio as it's allocated today is actually in a position that can support me if I choose to or am forced to retire, or maybe I have to do so earlier than anticipated, how do I structure my investments to ensure that they can withstand a downturn? Because guess what? It's been a heck of a long time since we've had a long one. If you have questions like that, if you're looking for that peace of mind, give Armstrong Advisory Group a call so we can work with you on delivering it. The number's 800-393-4001. How does Social Security, Medicare, even trust planning and tax planning come into all of my retirement plans? Call Armstrong Advisory Group. We can help you with it. 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
So we got a piece in the Bloomberg today. It's titled, "Why Are Young People Taking So Many Unwise Financial Risks?" And quite honestly, the answer is because they're young people. I know that's going to be unsatisfying to many of you, but Tucker, can you get the time machine fired up?
Stand by.
Okay, we got to go back to 2010. So put a little plutonium in that puppy. All right, it's 2010, and young Chuck decides on a Friday night to take a 2-hour drive down to Foxwoods Casino with one of his buddies.
Oh yeah,
from college. And on the way, they stop at the Cheesecake Factory in Providence, grab a little, something there, and then continue on their way to the blackjack tables at Foxwoods. And when there, two things happen. First, young Chuck ends up having to, after, losing some money at the blackjack table, hey, this is going to be my night. I got to figure this out. Young Chuck ends up taking out a cash advance on his credit card because, hey, it's just going to work out. And
you do.
Newsflash, it did end up working out for me that night.
Good.
But, things were pretty dodgy. I was literally thinking, how am I going to pay rent if this doesn't pan out? Meanwhile, my friend who I'm with, who right now is a very successful doctor, might I add, was taking his grad school loans and using them to bet on the blackjack table at Foxwoods.
Also very dumb, yeah.
We were very dumb because we were 22, 23 years old, and this is what young people do. They do dumb financial things.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to make this into something new in terms of hey, why are young people doing prediction markets, and is it because they think the world's going to end and this is the only way to get ahead? And people just want to make this into something big.
No, 20-something-year-olds are dumb.
20-year-olds do dumb things with money all the time,
So
and if I had some of these tools available to me, I would have done other dumb things too.
Right, that's the relevant question that I have. One, do they recognize in the moment that it is dumb?
Oh, I knew what I was doing was dumb?
Yeah.
Still did it.
Two, is it worse now because of the tools available?
Yes.
That's the relevant question to me is, so 20, I'll just, say especially, maybe it's just my view on things because I am a man, but 18 to 25-year-old men, pretty especially dumb and bad decision makers as a group, not all of them. If they're being provided with more opportunities to make dumb decisions, are we seeing something unique now, or is this no more prevalent than, what you experience?
Dumbness is like air. It expands to fill the available container. And if you give it a bigger container, it will fill that.
To fill it.
If I had access to prediction markets when I was 22 or 23,
oh boy.
Yeah, I would. And this is the dangerous part, in my opinion. When I went down to Foxwoods on a Friday night, ultimately I reached a point where it's like, hey, you can't do any more damage. Get out of here and go home, because there just was no way to do it. If it's on your phone just sitting on your couch 24 hours a day, yeah, I could see myself getting into some real trouble at that point. I mean, again, it's luck of the draw that I didn't and was able to figure it out. But ultimately, I don't think that young people today are, in the aggregate making any worse or better financial decisions than they used to. I think they have new tools available, just like they always do. And until we figure out how to manage that such that they can't wreck themselves the way they currently are, I do think it's going to be a problem. Because you talk to, if you have, again, on the gambling sites and prediction market sites, it's mostly young men. Go talk to anyone in your family who's between the ages of 18 and 27, and they'll tell you, a lot of my friends have problems with gambling debt or similar things.
1/3 of Gen Zers say they gamble in crypto or sports betting. It's a lot.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
And, people make it out to be like, well, that generation thinks the world's going to end, so they might as well do it.
No, it's just on their phone.
No, it's just there. They're just playing a game. You don't have to make it into a bigger thing. It's just young people do dumb financial things, story at 11. Let's take a quick break. When we return, let's do some stack roulette after this.
Follow the Financial Exchange Show on Instagram and see what's driving the conversation about Wall Street and economic trends. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Life estates are sometimes used to protect your home as part of your future, but it's important to understand how they really work before making any changes to your estate plan. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law and taxation. Their new guide, called Calculating the Consequences of Life Estates, explains the pros and cons and why careful planning is so critical. A life estate can allow you to remain in your home while transferring future ownership. But decisions like putting the property in your children's names versus using a trust can have very different consequences when it comes to taxes, control, and protection from creditors. Before you sign any deed or transfer property, be sure you understand your options. Call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699 and ask for your free guide today. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
As you navigate life after divorce, planning for your family's future becomes even more important. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. From everyday expenses to thinking about how college will be funded, it's important to have a clear plan for how all of your upcoming costs will be handled over time. Divorce also means adjusting to a new financial reality, where one household becomes two and your budget, saving strategy, and long-term goals may need to be reevaluated. Our new guide is called Divorce in Your Financial Plan, and it discusses ways to build a financial strategy that supports your family's next chapter. You can get your free guide today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Protecting your home at the Life Estate can be problematic if you don't understand the rules. Cushing & Dolan's new guide called Calculating the Consequences of Life Estates can help you learn about how this strategy works and what to consider. Call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699 and get your guide today. Or request it online at LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hi, I'm Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and soldiers' homes and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for both single veterans and those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
The Financial Exchange Show podcast drops every day on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. You're listening to the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, Mike. It's time for Stack Roulette. What do you got for me?
If you're sick of high gas prices, EV deals are everywhere right now. This is actually the case. When I was shopping for my latest car, which is electric, we ended up with the Ford Mustang Mach-E. The incentives on all of these things, whether they're from Ford, Chevy, or Hyundai, were significant. Teslas, I'm sure, are also the same case as they have been struggling as well. But the overestimation of demand coming into 2025 and 2026 was pretty substantial. Many of these companies have now backed off their EV plans, but they're sitting here with a glut of EVs. And a bunch of Americans buying EVs on the news of higher gas prices for 2 weeks would be just the funniest American car buying trend that I can think of. I distinctly remember during the mid-2000s and the gas crunch, the gas price increase that led up to the great financial crisis, used Priuses going for above MSRP for a brief period of time there. And you can kind of imagine that happening here, too. I'll remind people that electricity prices aren't cheap either right now, and you do actually need to charge your electric vehicles. So just because you don't have to fill it with gas does mean you have to fill it with some other means of making it go. But I'll admit I was surprised just how dramatic the discounts were on especially prior year electric vehicle models when I was out there shopping. And I'm quite happy with mine.
Why can't they just make the car out of the solar panel, man?
Great question. Make the whole thing out of the black box.
Exactly. Let's see. Mike, do we want to talk about the $1 trillion race to automate our entire lives, or even rich travelers are complaining about spiking prices?
Let's talk about the race to automate.
Okay. So, you've got all of these different AI programs out there. And in particular, in the last couple months, the idea of AI agents has become front and center in terms of, what's cutting edge and where things are going. And an AI agent is not just a chatbot that you talk to and say, hey, tell me how big the Grand Canyon is, or what do you think I should do on my vacation this week? An AI agent is something that, in theory, you could instruct to actually do things across a variety of different platforms. As an example, you could say to your AI agent, book me the cheapest flight from Chicago to Nashville anytime this summer for 4 days.
And by the way, this AI agent can also be trained to function in specific areas and likely changes based on its interactions with you, which is also the same of a lot of these AI models themselves.
Yes.
But the AI agent, oftentimes designed and specifically trained with you in mind or your company in mind.
You could use them for, let's say that you had like a smart scale as an example. Hey, I weigh myself every day. You could have an AI agent that says, based on your weight, here's what I'm, going to tell you to eat today or something like that. So there's all different, permutations of what you can do with it. Ultimately, here's the deal with AI agents. You can either, and this is going to be like, the resolution of this is kind of the tough part. You can have an AI agent that has access to all kinds of different systems. You're talking
about within like a business?
Within anything, even your personal life.
Yeah, okay.
You can have an AI agent that has access to all kinds of different systems and programs and can go all kinds of different places. You can have an AI agent that has access to all kinds of either personal data or sensitive data within your company. And you can have an AI agent that is completely safe from anything really going like very wrong. You cannot have all three of those things at once, because the second you give an AI agent access, let's look at a personal one. The second you give it access to personal data, such as, a credit card or social security number or date of birth or anything else, when you give it access to that and tell it to go use other systems, all of a sudden you've got the risk of your personal data ending up places where it shouldn't, or being, spilled to someone it shouldn't be spilled to. Likewise, for a company, let's say that you have a database of customer data, addresses, names, social security numbers, medical records, whatever it might be. You can have that data safe, or you can have an AI agent that has access to it and the ability to take it somewhere else, but that's a huge risk because the AI agent might end up doing something that you don't instruct it to.
You might be wondering, why would you want to do this? But to be really clear, like, these AI agents can... I'm trying to think of like use cases for giant companies. So let's say you are JP Morgan Chase and you are trying to make your customer interactions that much smoother and that much more personalized. An AI agent can go in and search the customer and say, this is what we know about them. This was the last interaction they had with us. This is how much money they took out of their ATM. And the next time they call, you can make it so that person answering the phone knows that person pretty intimately and gives them that comfortable feeling. And
forget that, Mike. The boring stuff. Hey, you're trying to process medical billing claims? Great. Here's the medical billing ID. Right. Here's the social security number. Here's the doctors they've seen. Go settle all of this up.
Yeah.
That way you don't have to have a person who does that. But then all of that data is now property of, like, the agent has access to it and doesn't clearly do what it wants to do.
Doesn't really care if it's fired either.
No. Taking a look at markets, still positive but off their highs. We'll see how things finish up, and we will see you tomorrow on the Financial Exchange.